All right. Welcome to everybody on Zoom. We're going to be getting started in just a minute. All right. So welcome everybody. Welcome anybody who's live streaming this on Zoom. We are going to get started almost immediately. I'm just going to bring this up. Can everybody on Zoom hear me? Give me a thumbs up. You can hear me? Good. Okay, good. Can somebody say something so I can hear you in the room here?
Hello.
Test.
Yeah, that's not good. You're coming through my computer. You're not coming through the big screen, but that's okay. For this
Sorry.
matter. No, it's not. Oh, apologies. It's not your guys' fault. All right. Can everybody on Zoom see my screen?
Yes.
All right. So for those of you in the room, current realtors and budding realtors, we are here to do a CMA workshop. Welcome to all of you folks who are on Zoom. We're going to be doing first talking theoretically, and then we're going to do practice. So I hope you have your laptops up and where everyone's going to sort of do their own thing. We're going to figure this out together. So here's my goal for today. We're going to talk about the point of a CMA. Why do we do them? I want to talk about the market around a CMA when you're thinking about doing a CMA. Some key variables to think about for your CMAs, a few tips and tricks, and then I'm going to go into our MLS and we are going to build them together. And you can use your own MLS and use your own data. But I'll walk through an example. For us. So, all right. So let's keep going here. So why do we do CMAs? So for sellers, we want to help our sellers select a suitable listing price. We want to help them understand the local market. And we want to make sure we create awareness for them of the challenges of pricing their property too high or even too low. For our buyers, it's very similar. We want to help them to select a suitable offer price and help them to understand the local market. This class is not about negotiations. It's not about strategy of how to price. It's about establishing value for a discussion with your buyers and sellers. And the actual practical doing of that. We have other classes around negotiations and around strategy of pricing. This is not that. All right. So understanding the market. So when you're thinking about creating a CMA, we're interested in a lot more than just specific comparable in a neighborhood. We want to learn, but we want to be able to help educate our client through the CMA of whether the market for this particular property in its location is favoring buyers or sellers. As we talk about a lot, real estate is all about location. Your CMA may reveal that the market where the home is that you are either selling, listing, or you're representing the buyer on is not behaving like the broader market in the city, in the county, in the state, or in the country. And so this is an important part of what your CMA is going to help people with. You also want to show your client with the CMA why some similar homes are selling faster and why some are selling slower. Another goal is to make our analysis thorough enough that we review all the different property statuses and we do it in a narrowing geography closer and closer to the property that we're talking about. We also, I think it's very important to compare actives to pendings in a market to try to get a pulse of it. And we'll look at that a little bit as we go through and do our own test CMAs, our practice ones. So things to think about as you're doing a CMA. First of all, subject property. When we use the term subject property or you see it on a CMA, that means the property that is being considered for purchase or sale. Pretty straightforward. Things that we want to think about for our CMA at a highest level is distance. How far is the subject property to the property we're comparing it to? We want to compare properties. Obviously, the closer they are, the better. Sometimes neighborhoods change by street. Sometimes in Oakland, especially, on one side of High Street, the neighborhood is one way, and on the other side of High Street, it's a completely different neighborhood. This happens all over the Bay Area, not just in Oakland. So understanding neighborhood changes, not even necessarily neighborhood boundaries, but neighborhood changes is something you should be thinking about. Bedroom count and bathroom count, please be careful because sometimes they are wrong or misleading. Sometimes a seller will call something a bedroom that is not a bedroom, or not call something a bedroom that should be considered a bedroom. For example, a room without a closet is typically not considered a bedroom. That's and there are appraisal standards for these things. But and the other thing about this is the MLS, we often get our bedroom bathroom count even before we go visit with the client for a listing or go show it to a buyer. We get it from the MLS or from the tax record in the MLS, which are not always the same. So those discrepancies in bedroom bathroom count, you need to sort of understand them for each property that you're going to be analyzing so you can talk about it with your seller. In certain parts of Oakland and other cities in the East Bay, it will say 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom when it's actually 3 bedrooms, 1.5 bathroom. Why would the MLS be wrong? Anyone have an idea? Any have an idea why the MLS might be inaccurate? On Zoom or in the room? Anybody? Sorry? You're on the right track. If somebody did work without getting a permit, they may not show on the tax record, and that's where the MLS pulls its data from. Oftentimes in listings, in the confidential remarks, the seller's agent will say, bedroom, bathroom count does not match public record, buyer to investigate. So when you're doing comps, don't forget to check for those types of things, because that can be very helpful when you analyze whether something is a reasonable priced comparable sale or not. The other thing to think about is that there are agents who just don't even put that remark in either. And so you only know when you go to see the property that it's got three bedrooms, because the public record said 2 and the agent didn't say anything at all. That happens from time to time. When we're talking about variables, another thing to think about is square footage of the building. And when I say of the building, I'm talking about the improvement on the vacant lot, which could be a house, could be a structure, whatever it is, like an office building or a condominiums building. The square footage of the building or the square footage of the unit in the condo. Got to be careful there too, especially with older homes in built-up neighborhoods. They will often be misleading for 2 reasons. Number one, the square footage of the public record no longer matches the square footage of the property because of the same problem with the bedroom bathroom count, where the owner has added improvements to the house without getting a permit, including full space. It may be misleading because they built out the basement without getting a permit, and they consider that living space, but the public record doesn't show it as living space. Garages, basements, that's a problem. But the other thing about square footages is 2 1,200 square foot houses may feel completely different. You as an agent, typical buyer might go into a 1,200 square foot house and another 1,200 square foot house and think that one is way bigger than the other one. And that's because of layout. A really good layout will minimize the effect of a smaller square footage. And maybe you've gone on tour and seen some of these older homes where the hallway runs right down the middle of the house and is really long. and eats up all this square footage. And the house may be bigger than a similar house that feels bigger. And that may be the reason why, because of bad, of an architectural layout that is suboptimal, let's say. Another variable to consider when you're doing your CMA is lot square footage. How big is the lot? Now, bigger lots don't always improve the value, but they do sometimes. What's more important with the bigger lots is the usability of the lot. So if you're looking at comps and one property has a 5,000 square foot lot and the next one, the same, say it's even the same style house, say it's the same layout exactly, has a 12,000 foot lot, then you'd think that the 12,000 foot lot would be worth more, everything else being equal. But what if most of that extra lot space is up a steep embankment and is completely unusable? The owner owns the embankment, but the hill is so steep you can't use it for anything. Can't even grow stuff on it. So usability is really important when you see a big discrepancy in lot size. The other thing about lot size is that it is relative to the neighborhood lots. If you're in a subdivision and all the homes are between 5,000 and 8,000 square foot lot, and your property that you're looking has a 10 to 15,000 square foot lot, that's really significant. But if it's in line with the other ones, it may be a lot less so important in terms of establishing value. Any questions so far? Everyone good? Okay. So the next thing to think about as we are getting, oh yes, question in the room, yes.
So when you say usability, I guess, how much does it matter that it's a backyard versus like it's a really well landscaped garden?
That could be very important to some buyers. Certainly there is value in a backyard. Let's imagine a level backyard. There's value in one that has been developed and landscaped and the new buyer doesn't need to do anything versus a patch of dirt. There's absolutely value there. And that would impact your comparison for sure. All right. So it doesn't get into it here, but certainly I'm just talking about square footage here. But certainly when you're evaluating a home, you want to look at what's been done on the lot, how the lot has been developed. Okay. And this gets to the issue of condition. So the first thing I want to say about a home's condition is if you have 15 homes in your market analysis, in your comps, and 3 of them are, and you're selling a home that's been upgraded, it's in good condition for the environment it's being sold in, for the neighborhood, for the market, take out the fixers. You know, if everything's selling in the 700,000 to 800,000 range, but you have 3 sales in the 500,000s because they're all fixers, take them out. Don't bother showing them to your seller or your buyer. They're irrelevant. Distressed properties like fixers or foreclosure sales that are selling well below market are only relevant in your analysis if you're comparing, if someone wants to buy one, right? If you have a buyer who's looking for fixers, then you want to include fixers, right? When you're evaluating and comparing these homes, you want to consider the upgrades and updates. People love kitchens. People love big open spaces. So you want to look at what kind of countertops, what kind of finishes are you observing? Ideally in person, not via photos, but you work with what you have to work with, right? The other thing is where possible, look at what's being disclosed in the disclosure package. Does the disclosure package or the information from the seller indicate a major problem that will reduce the value of this home, like a foundation problem, or it needs a new roof, or it has a $50,000 pest inspection? All of those things are things you want to factor in where you can learn them. Sometimes you can't learn them. You're looking at solds that sold to 3 months ago, and you have the MLS. The only way you're going to learn is by phoning the listing agent or the buyer's agent and asking them about why the price settled where it did, which is totally legitimate, by the way. And then the last thing is don't forget to make adjustments to the comps for amenities and features. Amenities and features. So for example, a home with an amazing view should sell for more than the same home without an amazing view, or a swimming pool, et cetera, et cetera. So these are some of the things we're juggling. You know, doing a good CMA is an art, not a science. So you're going to get better and better at it over time. So a few tips before we start playing. First thing is, you guys should never, ever recommend your seller list the home at X dollars or that your buyer write an offer for Y dollars, right? No specific numbers. Always specify a range and then talk with your client about the price at the high end and the price at the low end of that range and let them decide. The final decision is always with your client, never with us. You may have a client who does not agree with you about the analysis you've shared. They're the ones writing the offer. They're the ones agreeing what to sell it for. They're the ultimate decision maker. After you've shared everything with them, they may decide to go in a different direction, and that's okay. The good news is they know what you're telling them with your expertise to expect. In addition to active properties, pending properties, and sold properties, you should always take a quick peek at expireds, withdrawn, and canceled. That might give you a good idea of stuff going on in the neighborhood. And if a home has been on and off the market a whole bunch of times, it can be very good to look at these. You don't necessarily need to include them in your presentation to your client, but it could give you some good insight into maybe stuff going on the street or in that local neighborhood, or with that might bring value to you in your analysis. You always want to use what I call presentable visuals. Try not to share a raw MLS printout. The MLS printouts of comparable properties, you can arrange it in a bunch of different formats, but just doing a raw MLS report is kind of ugly. You're better off doing, and also it uses a lot of abbreviations typically. So you can use it for your internal research, but I recommend you use a tool to produce a nice looking CMA. Most of them will allow you to export data from the MLS, or will have an automatic link to pull the data. The one I use is Cloud CMA, and we'll look at that, and it's a lot prettier. Plus they come with all kinds of bells and whistles and extra reports and extra pages and other things. And you know, you want to be a professional. So if you just take out a CMA summary report, and I'll show you what they look like, you're not gonna impress them as much as if you did a report that looks nicely formatted with pretty pictures and doesn't use jargon. There is a tendency for some of us to provide too much information. At the end of the day, you want to come up with maybe 2 solid grade A comps for every situation, and then 2 to 3 more that you'll go to as backup. And you don't want to go too much more than that, except just to acknowledge, but you don't want to overwhelm your client with too much. You want to sort of, there's the KISS principle. Everyone hear of the KISS principle? Keep it simple, silly. I'm using the word silly, but other words are used sometimes for that, right? So keep it simple. That doesn't mean you shouldn't be aware of the other comps. It just means you want to make it easy for people to understand. And then, as I said before, please visit the properties and the neighborhoods wherever possible, because I guarantee you, every time I do this, I get a new perspective. I was pricing out a listing in an Antioch neighborhood was it Pittsburgh? Sorry, it was Pittsburgh. I was pricing out last fall on a property in Pittsburgh, and there were a couple of other active properties on the market. And I went to look at them so that when we went on the market the next week, I would know what the competition looked like, and we could also maybe just fine tune our pricing. And that really helped solidify the pricing recommendation I was making, price range recommendation I was making, because I'd been in the competition. I went inside the competitive houses, right? So that can be really helpful, whether you're representing a buyer or a seller. It takes time, but it can be very, very helpful. All right, so before we go in and start building one, does anybody have any questions on Zoom or in the room? Any questions? No? Okay, let's go do this. So I am going to exit out of my presentation, and I'm going to go into Paragon, which is the MLS service that we use here in the East Bay. All right, so I'm logging into Paragon, and I'm going to build one, but you guys, if you're on your laptops, you can go into Paragon and you can start building your own along with me for a property. All right, if you don't have your laptop or you just want to watch me do it, can somebody give me a property address?
You want single house or?
Give me a property address you'd like me to do a CMA for right now.
Yeah, they got it.
Absolutely.
Anybody, put it in
Please.
text, chat, or just tell me.
33979 Melloway.
Okay, 33979, and spell it, please.
MELLO.
There it is. Mellow Way.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. Okay. All right. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm looking it up. Actually, I'm in the wrong place. The first thing you should do, 33979, the first thing you should do is look at the history before you start actually building your CMA. You want to look at the history of MLS listings of the property. So I go into search. It's a residential property, right? Who is the person? Can you, whoever was that gave me the property? Who was
Karuna.
it? Okay, Karuna, that's a house, right?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll search by residential property. Stay unmuted, Karuna, because I'm going to have questions for you.
Okay.
So here we go. So what I want to first do is look up all statuses. Actually, we don't even need to specify a status. We just put in our address. So it is 33979. And then we put in the street, MO, not the way. Don't ever put the suffix or the prefix, just put in the street. And it says active. I don't want active on everything. So there are 3 times that 33979 Mellow has been in the MLS. So when I do a search, I get a detail view of a spreadsheet. So it's a spreadsheet and it shows that it's sold 3 times on the MLS. The good news here is it's all the same property. Sometimes when you do the search, it's the same street name and number, but in multiple cities. So you first want to make sure you're talking about the right one. So in this case, we have 3 sales and it's all the same property and the price varied dramatically. And it was $14.67 and that's fine. So it's good to know this to see if it had any times that it was withdrawn, expired, if there's anything else going on with the property. It's good to check this. So that's our first step. Now, the other thing is this is showing that it was marketed as a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom. And we can open this up and we can get more detail about how it was marketed, which can be helpful for other reasons. But for the purpose of our CMA today, we know it's a 4-2-1467. It's been marketed that way 3 times. So the next thing the next step I do is I go to the tax report. Actually, let's just pick up one of the solds. It'll be faster that way. When you go into any property, there should be a link to CRS tax report or CRS data. And that's the tax report. So this looks like the last time it was sold, because it's the highest price, was in 2004. And so if we click on the CRS report, That's going to give us a ton of information as a starting point. Now, if you are representing a buyer and you viewed the property, you want to verify that it actually matches, that it is a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom, like we were talking about before. And you can get that down towards the bottom of the CMA report. What the tax report says: 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, built around 1977, 1467 square feet. You know, the older the home, the more likely a discrepancy between the MLS and the tax page. But everything looks good here. And if we were meeting with a seller, we'd want to make sure the owner name matched the who we're meeting with and all that other good stuff. But for now, we now know that this really is a 4.2 1467 for the purpose of doing analysis. So we're ready to start. So here's how I do it. Now, there are a lot of other ways to do this, but this is how I do it, which I wanted to demonstrate today. And you guys can do this for your own properties as we go through. So we're going to start a brand new search, and we're going to put in all statuses, and we're going to put in building type detached. So there's a bunch of building types. So you don't want to compare usually condos with townhouses, with mobile homes, with single families. So detached is the code for single family. This is a single family home, right, Karuna?
Yes.
So the next thing we're going to specify is 4 bedrooms versus 4 bedrooms. Now, sometimes you might want to add in 4 to 5 bedrooms or 3 to 5 bedrooms after you've done your initial search. But to always, you should start with the bedroom count matching exactly. So we'll do 4 bedrooms. Now, the public record calls this a 2-bedroom, but I'm not going to put in 2-bathroom rather. I typically don't put the bathroom in right away, or maybe I'll do something like 2 to 3 bathrooms. Because I don't want to lose out on listings that are very similar, except they have an extra bath or an extra half bath. Now, the square footage, 1467, right? That's what it was?
Yes.
Yeah. So I like to, as a start, go about 300 below and 300 above it to capture homes that are like similar. So 1150 to 1750 covers off about 300 square feet on either side of the building size. Okay. And the other thing I recommend you do is going back in time. And we always want our comparables to have been sold in a very reasonable time frame compared to where we're at in time right now. So our market is so volatile. So where you always want to start is, I think, no more than 3 months old. No more than 3-month-old sales. You want to capture all of the properties that are on the market right now and all the ones that are pending. So when the list date and off-market date, we leave the date range blank. But for closing date, I recommend you choose when it opens up. I recommend you choose 90 days. I don't know why it's taking so long to come up here. So this is weird. It's not bringing up it's not coming up quickly.
I think it's not coming on because those 2 options are kind of grayed out. The only thing that's available.
No, it shouldn't be though.
Because
All right.
if you check the date range for the.
Yeah, you're right. There's nothing there. You know why? Because I didn't specify any statuses. Okay,
Yeah.
let's go back and do this again. Maybe we should put in all the statuses. So all active, all pending, all sold, and then all pending. I think you're absolutely right. I didn't put in a statuses. Anything pending, and all withdrawn, and all expired. Okay, expired, And then there's also canceled. Okay, so now, yes.
So is it a good idea to put all active, just because I think a lot of the properties that I see now have a marketing price, and I don't know if that would still do justice to.
Anything that's on the market should be reviewed.
even if
When
it's
you
like-
say marketing price, you mean the price isn't what the seller wants.
Yeah, and it's-
Doesn't matter. That's part of your analysis. You absolutely want to show the competition wherever the competition is priced at. All right, thank you, Matthew, because I think that was the whole problem. So I don't specify a date range for listing actives and pendings, but for closings, I want to do 90 days back. Now, at some times of the year, maybe you want to go 4 to 6 months. And if the market has been really calm and stable, you'll want to maybe go 6 months. Now, notice we got a count going. We still have 90,000 properties because we've not created a distance from the property. So we click on the search by map up here. I should have done this first, but that's okay. And we put that address in again. So Karuna, what's the address again?
33979
Uh-huh.
Mallow
Mallow.
Way.
And then Fremont, right? Fremont?
Yes.
Okay, so we then, now, this is a tricky little thing in Paragon. There's 2 search buttons. You want, when you put the address in you want to be focused on, you click the little magnifying glass, not the big search button. And what it does is it puts a little flag where this property is. Now let's back up a bit. I'm going out a bit. So the question is, how big a map do you draw around this? And if you know Fremont really, really well, you would actually go street by street and draw draw around it. But
I think this is it's showing the wrong address on the map. It should be Mallow Way. Maybe
Yeah.
it's corrected. You didn't put the
what's it
way.
showing? Did I not put in Mellow Way?
You only put only Mallow
3.
979.
Uh-huh.
Then MELLO. Then space
Yeah.
WAY.
Yeah, but that's what I thought I did. Okay, let's just see. That's better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, so so this is so why does it have a 2 there? I don't understand. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So so this is centered on this property. So what I would do if I didn't know the neighborhood, I would simply draw a radius search around it of maybe a half a mile and search the radius. That'll create a little circle, which it didn't do it right. So that's no good. Let's just go back a bit. Okay. I didn't mean to draw that circle, so I'm going to just delete it. So you should, if center map and zoom on this address. Okay. And so what we should be able to do is we'll do it the other way. So you can click radius over here, plop the little line there and go out around it. And it will create a circle. That's certainly one way you can do it. See how many listings there are in the lot. And this is, this can't be right. You can't possibly have that many sales in the last 90 days. So I got to go back and see what's happening here. But that is certainly a way to do it. But we could also, which is better if you know what you're doing in the neighborhood, is you draw a map around the areas that you want to compare. So maybe we want to go up here and down here and down here and over here, and then you make it hook up. And then you can now search this. And now we're going to go back to our results and find out why there are so many, because there's way too many. Okay, there's a lot because of a whole bunch of expireds and canceled. So we go back to our criteria. Let's remove the expireds and canceled for right now and the withdrawns. Now we're at 7. Okay. Now, why do we get so many expireds and withdrawns? Because they could be from long, long time ago. I didn't put start and end dates on those criteria. So we have 7 properties that match our criteria. 4 bedrooms, 2 or 3 baths between 1150 and 1750. Now, we can certainly look at the comps for these properties, but 7 is a number that I find too small. When I'm doing an initial analysis and I want to get a sense of where pricing should be, I want a bigger pool. So one way I can get a bigger pool is by broadening the geography. Another way I can get a bigger pool is by including 3 and 4 bedrooms that fit within, broaden the bedroom count to fit the square footages of the buildings. Another thing I can do is I can broaden my 90 days back to go back further. So I like to change the time first. I like to keep the properties as similar as possible. So if we change it from 90 days back to 6 months back, now we have 10 properties. It's still on the low end, but we can work with it. So what I could do now is I typically do a search at this point. And the other thing I do at this point is I save my work. Okay, I'm just giving it a fake name right now, so I have it. But what I want to point out here is the listings the way it comes up for me is I don't like this view as a first glance view. What I like to do instead is go to reports and create a CMA and look at a CMA summary. Now the CMA summary report gives it to you, and it's slightly a view that I like better for a quick glance, because otherwise it just looks like a whole bunch of raw data, right? In the typical standard spreadsheet view. So this is my CMA summary. Now I have modified the default, and once you modify a default report appearance, it will stay the way you've changed it. So I've added in partial baths, HOA fees, potential for unit numbers, closing dates. So you can see that of these 10 properties in the last 6 months, there are 4 on the market, 1 pending, 5 sold in this little neighborhood that I've defined. Can we draw, so one of the things that I talk about is active versus pending ratio. And I want to know, whether we're in a buyer's market or a seller's market. If we have more actives than pendings, we're favoring buyers. If we have more pendings than actives, we're favoring sellers. But we don't know that from this result because there are too few properties. If you want to get a sense of how the market is trending in a neighborhood, you need to go across all kinds of properties and not just a specific search. So this 4-to-1 ratio of actives to pendings isn't meaningful in terms of buyer-seller demand in and of itself. Now, if somebody is looking for a 4-2 in this particular neighborhood, it is favorable for them searching right now, but it's not telling us of anything about general trends. So we can see here in this view that there's 4 active, 1 pending, and 5 sold in the last 6 months. We can see the average selling price versus listing price, minimum, maximum, and median. There is a lot of value in using median values instead of average values. Does anyone know what the problem is with using average values, especially with smaller groups, smaller number of homes? What's the problem?
If there's like a very low or very high number, it can really skew.
Absolutely. If you have one property that's sold higher or lower, or is listed dramatically higher or lower than the average, it skews the numbers dramatically. So median is better. The median is the number right in the middle. If you made a list of the numbers, put them in order, your median is in the middle. So in real estate, we tend to use median more because it gets rid of those outliers that are misleading us, right? So we can see that the median sale price of a 4-bedroom 2, everything else being equal, is 1.9 million. We can also at a glance see from these 5 sold properties that the units square, these are all very similar houses. In this particular neighborhood, there is not a lot of variation in the 4-bedroom 2-bathroom. It was probably a big subdivision that was built by a developer with 2 or 3 models, right? Maybe 4 models. And some of these homes may have the exact same layout. Like Cromwell and Warwick look like they have the exact same layout, right? Now, where you do see a discrepancy is in lot size. Cromwell is 5,800 square foot lot and Warwick is 7,838, right? The other thing you should look for here is list price to sold price and days on market. So in the past 6 months, the 5 homes that have sold here, they've averaged 13 days on the market. Their median is 8 days on the market. So that one, why is the average so much higher? Because there's one took 30, 2 of them took 21 days or more. 3 of them sold in less than a week, right? So this is telling us that under days on market, DOM right here. Yeah, this column, 21, 4, 30, 8, and 5. Median is 8, average is 13. The average home in this group of homes we're looking at took less than 2 weeks to sell. The average home that is sold. Now, by contrast, if we look at the actives, they have been on the market 13 days already. Now, what is that telling us? That maybe things are slowing down in this neighborhood just a little bit. And for the pendings,
The median is darker.
they're both darker.
Both.
This is median. This is average,
Okay.
right? And then you've got pending. There's only one pending. It was on the market for 6 days and then sold. Okay. We know we don't have a close date. The listing agent did not publish a close date, went into the contract last week. Okay. Now, let's presume for a minute that we're going to use this for our starting point. We're not going to try to modify our search again. What we want to do before we start picking the ones that are good and bad comps for our purposes is looking at them one at a time. So when you go to look at them one at a time, what I do is I look at the agent view. And what I'm very interested in is what the confidential remarks say and who the listing agent is and who the buyer's agent is, because I might know them personally. Okay? And that is someone I want to talk to for sure. So also the confidential remarks will give us a lot of information. In some cases, you will have pictures. And I recommend you look at these pictures as big as you can make them, because each one of these homes, especially the solds, you're going to be able to get a sense of what kind of upgrades, carpeting versus hardwood flooring, what kind of staging, right? Are there any obvious issues around the floor plan that you can tell from the pictures? This kitchen has not been updated. This is an old style kitchen. It's not ugly or anything, but that is just oak. People don't do oak in kitchens nowadays. So it's an older kitchen.
They don't do oak.
No, you do. You're normally white. Everyone wants their kitchens to be white, and they want quartz countertops. Look at these countertops. They are so 90s. They're very 90s. It's a dark concrete stone, very popular in the 90s. Go back a little bit further, you have tile. Go back a little further, you have laminate finishes in the kitchen. So it depends. But this is telling us something about this property. Bathroom. This bathroom has, looks like an ugly tile floor. It doesn't look like it's been updated. A little bit of wallpaper to fake crown molding. That's not updated at all, right? This looks like a carpet, old style closet doors. So we can tell already that this property has not been updated. It was sold in its condition as it was maybe 20 years ago, but it has a pool. So you do this for every property in your list. And I'm gonna not do any more because I want to get you to show you how we produce a report. But anyway, we would make notes about this somewhere and think about it as we're comparing it to the property that we want to buy or sell. And what I would point out here is, in addition to the pictures, you want to read the confidential remark. Notice it says, owner passed away peacefully in the home of natural causes. That could be a real turnoff for some buyers. How long did it take to sell? 4 days. Didn't seem to bother the buyer, right? And you can see BQ Realty at the bottom was the seller buyer broker, and the seller's broker was EXP and an agent named Stephen Hurd. His name's just like mine with 1 letter difference. Wow, that's funny. Anyway, so we do this for every one of the properties. We start thinking about how it compares on all those categories I mentioned before. This one sold in December. Would people agree that the market in April is different than the market in December? So we have to factor that into this as an older comp, okay? So let's just say, because of our time today, let's just say that we've reviewed these 10 comps, and these are the 10 comps we want to use for our presentation mode. So the first thing I do is I always go back to my search modality and put it back out of this mode into this basic mode. And I put the pricing into order so that the lowest price is at the bottom. I click on sold price in my regular view of the spreadsheet so that the higher priced homes are in the sold category are in order lowest to highest sold price. That will make my reports sort faster for me where I'm going next. So then what I do is I click to highlight all the ones I want. Then I click on this little plugin thing that says actions. And I click that little blue plugin and I want Cloud CMA. That's what I use, okay? Because again, I don't want to send those ugly reports. I want to send my client something that's pretty, right? So Cloud CMA, I load Cloud CMA. This is free with your MLS subscriptions, right? And we're going to call this, the address. What's that address again, Karuna?
33979 Malloway.
And private notes for listing appointment 4725. Right? Then you put in the subject property. Wait, I would even do it this way. Comparable sales report for. Okay, then over here, we actually put in our property. And what'll happen is it will find it. So you click on it here. Now, by the way, if you're using Cloud CMA and you put the address in the address field for a condo, it will not find your unit number in most cases. You have to manually put your unit number in. But if it's a house, it will pull the bedroom bathroom count. And you can, if you're going on a listing appointment, you might want to put in a picture of the house that you took when you did your drive-by, because you're always going to do a drive-by the day before, right, guys? Check out the neighborhood, right? Take a picture of the house. You could use an older picture of the house, but who knows? They might have painted it or changed the landscaping out front. Better to take your own picture when you do your drive-by. It's residential. Subclass is detached. Okay, and then there's two ways to pull listings for our report. Oops, sorry. You can do your listings by using the ones that you had just pre-selected, or you can have it do it for you. I like to do my own search and pick my own comps. You know, with the rise of AI, maybe we won't be doing that in 5 years, or 2 months. but I recommend you do your own basic raw search and use exact listings before you prepare the report. Then you click Fetch Listings at the bottom. Okay, good. Now, Cloud CMA will allow you to specify a range for the price, but you don't have to. So this is contingent on the scenario here. If you are working with a buyer, you may very well want to put in a range. But if you're going on a listing appointment and you still don't know what it looks like inside, maybe you leave it blank, subject to discussion with the seller. Don't create any false expectation, because you might put in a range here assuming that the property is in good condition, but you get inside and you see mold, evidence of mold everywhere and leaky stuff and, you know, a bad scenario. So you can leave it blank. It's up to you. And then you can sort by a variety of ways. Now, what I like to do here is double check to make sure all my listings, I'm going to sort them by, I'm going to sort them by status. So I can include all, I can start pre-selecting which ones I want, and I want them to be sorted. I want to I want to create a custom report, but notice I got the ones that are closed first, then the pendings, then the actives. So what I might do, because I'm like this, is I would put them in order within their sort category. So of the closed, when I did that sort, I lost the sort that I wanted. I want the more expensive one at the bottom. I want to go up in price. So I needed to redo this. See how I'm moving them around? You just drag, okay? And then pending, only one pending. And then for actives, I want them in order, lowest to highest. You don't have to do it that way. I like to do it that way. It doesn't matter. It's however you want them to show up. And then you can manually add a listing. You can also go in for each one of these. Now, this is not a class in Cloud CMA, but just a few things. You can go into notes and adjustments. Okay, so it brings up all the remarks or everything. You can add a note for your presentation format that tells your seller, home has a major crack on left side of structure and backyard is on a steep hill. Something like that, right? You add your note. That note will now be part of your presentation. Okay. And you then can go down and then you can make adjustments. So you can say condition and you can say add $50,000. Now, and you save it. So now why do we do adjustments? Because it allows us to do a better analysis of how this home compares to the one we're studying. So if we know that a home is weaker, we put in a positive number on the adjustments. If we know the home is superior, we put in a negative number on the adjustment. So this car has a 2-car garage. So we could say 2-car garage instead of 1 car, and then take out, I don't know, $15,000. I'm just guessing, and save. And then you will have an adjusted price different than what it actually sold for. The idea is to make the properties that are comparables, make them as much like the one you're talking about as possible. So rule of thumb, just remember, negative value if it's in weaker condition than the property you're studying, positive value if it's in sorry, I said that wrong. Sorry. Put in a negative value if it has something yours doesn't have. Put in a positive value if it is weaker, if it has something that yours does have.
So
it's reverse.
Getting to Cloud CMA.
You click on the little plus sign at the top of the other screen. So how do I get to it? The little plug, the little navy blue plug. You click the navy blue plug and then you click on, when the actions come up, you click on Cloud CMA. Okay. We can talk about it after. Yeah. You're not getting the plus symbol? Are you in the spreadsheet view?
That's probably what it
Yeah.
is.
Anyway, let's keep going so I can get through this because we're not finished creating this yet. So we've chosen our properties. We put in our adjustments. Now what we want to do is we want to go to the next thing, which is to format the report. So we've updated our notes. We've updated our properties. Now we're going to click Customize Report. You know, and you can add and take ones in here too. And so here's what you can choose your theme. Now I have a default setting because I've been using Cloud CMA for a while. So I'm just going to leave my settings. I've got a title page, a map of all the listings, summary of comps, listing details, and comparable property statistics. But you can customize this format any way you want. And there's all kinds of choices, like custom pages, like client testimonials, for example. Guidance pages to help your client understand what they're looking at. Analysis pages, like how does this compare? Seller net sheet, time to sell, average price per square foot, sold property analysis. There's all kinds of stuff. I don't use any of that stuff. Again, it's a whole, my feeling is keep it simple. And then what you can do is you can publish the report. Now, when you publish the report, it creates a PDF, which you can include in an email or in a text message. But the other thing is, if you are on a Zoom call with your client, you don't have to send them an attachment. You can simply view it live with your client. So it has a view live button, which is really, really awesome. So it's now, let's just click on the view the PDF and you can see what you get. And, you know, again, I've configured this. I didn't put in a picture, so it's just showing a big Google Map overview. Okay. So there's my title, there's my branding. There's a map showing you where the properties are, color coded by active, pending, and sold, right? They're all 4-bedroom, 2 bathrooms. I mean, this is exactly what we chose, right? Then my summary of sold, pendings, and solds, right? And then individual property details. I try to keep this to 2 pages. You can do a super detailed one where you get a lot of pages for each property, but I recommend keeping the list of the comps down to 2 pages for each one.
Submit this before or as a.
But this is way prettier than just printing them one of those ugly charts you saw before, right? And then we get down to the bottom and you can have a pricing recommendation at the bottom if you want to, but all I do is this. And that opens up discussions for me and my clients about the properties that I've chosen. Now, before I go to meet the client, I'll maybe have taken this report and say, okay, these 2 are our best sold comps. Here's why, Mr. Seller, Mr. Buyer. And the same thing, these 3 actives that your listing is going to be competing with, here's why I think they're going to sell fast or slow, et cetera, et cetera. And you can get into all the detail. So that's kind of how we do it. Now, you don't have to use Cloud CMA. There are other tools for doing reports like this. So anyway, I think now is as good a time as any to take some questions. And Jack has a question in the room.
I have a question. In the last screen you show us,
Yeah.
the per square feet thing,
Yeah.
you know, I come up with that number, but whenever you talk to people, they don't have an idea of that. They compare house by house. They don't compare by square foot.
Right.
Because, you know, all the houses are very different.
Right.
So how do you, when you bring that report to your prospect or client, how does that number make sense to them or?
So when I talk to my clients, unless they are investors who are planning to buy something where each square foot is dollar producing, I downplay square footage. But I say all the homes I chose are within this range of the square footage of your house. Similar size. The building interior is of similar size. But as I said before, I don't focus on that. I focus on bedroom, bathroom count, and layout. So I sometimes, if I don't have a lot of comps, in this example today, the only comps I used were based on time. I had 7, and then I expanded because I wanted more, and I went to 10 by going back 6 months instead of 3 months. I didn't have to do that. Instead of going back to 6 months, I could have kept it at 3 months and gone down to 2 and 3 bedroom houses with 1 to 4 baths instead of just 4 bedroom houses, because of the square footage was already preset in that range. So it's very important because you do want your buyers and sellers to know that the 3-bedroom version of the same square footage is selling for more or less, right? But you're right, Jack. Typically, bedroom count creates more value. That's true. All right, we're almost out of time. Does anyone else have any other questions?
No, thank you, Stephen. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Was 3.5 bathrooms in that case?
Yes, thank you,
3 to 4.
Stephen.
You're welcome. So if someone has a property with 3.5 baths, go in the range. Look at homes with 3 baths and homes with 4 baths. All right. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to stop our YouTube thing. Thanks, everyone, for being here. This will be